What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I am excited to be here with you. I know it's been a little bit since I've sat down and brought you something, but I am ready to bring it today. We are going to dive into all things subconscious, conscious mind, and the good old critical factor. We're going to discuss and talk about the differences between these different aspects of our mind and how they function for us, as well as how to work with. If you've been hearing a lot around about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and trying to understand how to work with it and how to use it in the transformation of behaviors, this is going to be the conversation for you today. So sit back, grab your cup of coffee, and let's explore the conscious, subconscious, and the critical factor. All right, here we go. So I'm taking it back old school today. I don't know if you're like me or not, but I kind of miss sometimes having paper notes. Like while notes on the computer can be really helpful and easy to navigate, like there's just something really good about having old school paper notes. So if you hear me flipping the papers, that's what's happening. I'm taking it back to the old school method today, and I hope you really do enjoy this conversation. This has been really cool for me to explore it in a whole different light. Some of you may know, but I'm in the middle of going through an intensive, it's about 520 hours worth of hypnosis training, where I am learning so much about the subconscious and the conscious mind and the critical factor and how to work with this on such a different level than I've ever explored or understood before. So I'm really excited to start bringing a lot of this information to all of you guys so that you can get exposed to this and hear this, and maybe it starts to resonate with you and help to explain and understand why behaviors or patterns or things are showing up, all driven by these massive belief systems that we hold that really do impact everything about who we are. So I am stoked to get to talk to you about it today. So let's start it off. I want to talk about the subconscious mind. Man, the subconscious mind is so fascinating. One of the biggest things that we look at here in the subconscious mind is that it definitely serves as like a memory bank or a computer for us. So it's going to be a mixture of fact and perception and fantasy. Sometimes I have this conversation with people, especially if we're doing any kind of deeper work within the subconscious. They think that seeing these memories or things that have happened is like watching a movie within our subconscious. And it's not quite, it's going to be a version of a movie, but it's not going to be the facts of the movie. So what our subconscious does, it doesn't really know fact from fiction. So it's going to take in the situation, the scenario of whatever is happening, and based on perceptions and literally any TV shows or movies that you've seen, and also some of the facts, and it's going to build that memory bank around what happened. Now, what happens from this point is that it is going to control all of our involuntary functions of the body. So we're talking about physiological changes. The subconscious mind is definitely the seat of our emotions. It's the seat of our imagination. It carries about any kind of habitual conduct. So things that we do over and over again, that is definitely driven by the subconscious. And sometimes it's so, if you think about it or look into your own life, there are so many things that you do that are so subconscious, you don't even pay attention to it. But definitely is going to direct all of our energy and emotions into this whole concept of believing and identifying who we are and what we believe about ourselves. And the subconscious mind is a little bit tricky, a bit of a trickster, in that it can definitely come up with some fabrications and things, memories that we hold that are true for us, but not necessarily that are fact. And so this can be a bit of a slippery slope when we're dealing with some of these deep-seated beliefs or traumas around things, is that we have to be okay with and realize that it might not actually be fact, but just the way that we're interpreting it. So there are several different ways, and I like this kind of concept of understanding, like, we can only see the past, and we're going to respond to what our perceptions of the past actually are. And when we think about what I like to look at as like a miracle or a shift in the mind, is when we get to actually address or work on these beliefs that are holding within us and make a huge shift in what that is. And that can be done in so many ways, which we'll talk about here shortly. But what I want to talk to you about is how do we convince the subconscious mind? How does it start to get these ideas about who we are or what we think about things? And repetition is one of the biggest thing. That is why, of course, we have all heard it. I know I heard it probably like 10,000 times in Fire Academy, but repetition is the motor of learning, right? Doing things or hearing things over and over again is going to cause the subconscious mind to grasp onto that belief or that idea and actually put value into it. So if, as a kid, you're told you're a burden, you're too loud, you're not good enough, like, you're disgusting, you're not lovable, you're a mess up, like, you can't do anything right. If you grew up in a scenario where you heard that over and over again, whether it's from caregivers or teachers or other, people that you were around, you're going to actually start to believe that because your subconscious is hearing it over and over and over again. And like I mentioned, this becomes very big when we look at identification with a group or a parent. So again, if your parent, that parent was telling you, like, you're a piece of shit, or I don't care about you, or your emotions are not valid, or we don't feel emotions, or you're not important, you're too loud, whatever it is, like, you're gonna start to believe that. And all of these ideas that can be presented by either authority figures or peer groups have a massive influence on what the subconscious starts to believe. And this is where I think we can see this a lot too play out in the first responder realm, is through intense emotion. So when we think about the mental law of dominant effect, right, the strongest emotion is going to win. So if you were feeling anger all of the time, that's your strongest emotion, that emotion is going to win a lot of the time, if not 10 times out of 10. The other really cool way, which of course I'm semi-biased to now, is through hypnosis. And I'm going to talk to you guys about why this is so powerful and why this works, and introduce you to the concept of what we call the critical factor. But through hypnosis, and even through some of the psychedelic assisted therapy, we're able to bypass the critical factor. And that critical factor, like I said, you're going to get to know it very well, and I'm sure you already know it now, but you're going to get to understand it a lot better. But that is another way that we work through that. So I want you guys to understand some more about what the subconscious mind is, in terms of what does it do, how does it operate. So it's going to take care of all the processes that are occurring out of the conscious awareness. This is like things like breathing, heart rate, digestion, all of those things that you're not actively aware that you're doing it. It's happening under the surface. That's all taken care of by the subconscious mind. Now, fun fact here is, like, the subconscious has no power to reason. It is going to accept and act upon any fact or suggestion given to it. It is very literal. It doesn't know the difference between fact and fiction. It doesn't differentiate between what you perceive as happening only in your mind, like what you imagine, and what you perceive as being outside of you, real, which is real. For your subconscious mind, it's all the same. So, the subconscious, when we think about the reality, it's determined by your feelings, and that's it. So it's really powerful, and let that really sink in to make sense for you, but it doesn't know the same make-believe or real. It all feels the same to the subconscious mind. And this gets really sticky when we have some old beliefs that are centered in things from the past that keep us repeating the same narratives over and over again, or finding ourselves in the same situations over and over again, the same relationships over and over again. It's so much seated in the subconscious. I cannot emphasize it and tell you that enough. Now, the subconscious is your feeling mind. That's why they call it the emotional mind a lot of the time. It is a place where your emotions are going to be stored. And we know that people don't like emotions. I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation. I don't want to feel these things. I don't like feeling like this. I don't like feeling sad. I don't like feeling angry. I don't like feeling irritated. All of these things. We don't like feeling emotions, of course, unless, they're what people would say as positive emotions, happiness, bliss, joy, all those kind of things. But if it's anything bad, I don't want to feel it. So what do? We stuff it down, we bottle it up, and that creates such a big disconnect for us. Again, cannot overemphasize this hard enough. If you refuse to allow your emotions to be felt or experienced, move through your body, energy and motion, it is going to cause a huge disconnect for you. And it's going to cause a lot of problems, not just on the mental side, even to the physiological point as well, which we're going to talk more about that. But the subconscious mind is going to store information from all of the senses. This is one of the coolest things that I think is so fascinating about the subconscious mind, is that it's always taking in this bit of information. So, if we think about the senses, and we'll talk about the conscious mind, but just to give you a very small glimpse of that, is that the conscious mind can only hold so much information at a time. It has a very limited storage capacity and a very limited processing capacity. So the subconscious mind is infinite. It can take in gobs of information. So it's constantly taking in and interpreting situations. So what happens is it's going to store past experiences, learnings, memories, emotions, and beliefs. And when it gets stored, we've already recognized that it's going to register as being true based on its mixture of fact, perception, and fantasy, right? And that's going to get held within the subconscious. So, really important to understand this fact, right? Is that it's not always 100% fact. It's going to be a mixture of all of those things. Fact, perception, and fantasy all coming together, all based on what it's taking in from the senses. And as we explain and learn more about this as well, this helps us understand that when we find ourselves in similar situations to maybe negative experiences we've had in the past, or painful or traumatic experiences, our body and the subconscious mind don't know any different. It doesn't know place and time. It can recognize that as a very similar type situation. Therefore, it starts to send out the forces in terms of, what do I have to do to stay safe? What do I have to do to stay okay? Now, we talked about this a little bit, but the subconscious mind is your biocomputer. Once it's programmed with a certain idea or belief, it's going to operate out of that idea or belief as if it were complete reality and complete truth. It stores all the data from all experiences we've ever had, and every thought, every word that has ever been said to us, everything we observe by the senses is all going to be stored within the subconscious. It's a lot of freaking information, right? It's a lot of information. And because of all of that, it's going to store our values and our core beliefs about what we think about ourselves. So, the other really crazy part about this, you guys, is that when you make a decision, you're going to keep that in place until you make another decision. So if you are moving through life with this underlying belief that I'm not good enough, I can guarantee you, 100% guarantee you, in fact, that decision that you've chosen to hold on to, that belief that's there, that core value, really, core belief, is going to impact 10 out of 10 decisions and things that happen in your life. If you believe that you are not good enough, you are going to have situations that are constantly going to come up where that is proven to be true over and over and over again. It is wild, but I want you to really wrap your mind around this, is that is the subconscious mind is driving the bus in terms of all of your patterns, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, all based on what your core values and beliefs really are. Now, ideas and beliefs become set in stone with the subconscious through the emotions. The more intense the emotion, the greater the stamp is on the subconscious. So think about this, you guys. If we think about this, and we know, sorry if you don't like to hear this, but some of us, you just need to hear it and listen, is that from ages up to the age of 8 to 10, the subconscious mind is very impactful, incredibly impactful. So if you are experiencing a lot of intense emotion, either directly or indirectly, within that age frame, or you have these events that come up within your life that spur on these big emotions, that is definitely going to be imprinted within your subconscious. And again, the stronger the emotion, the stronger the imprint. So just think about that. And that still impacts our subconscious today too. No matter how old you are, it's not like once you reach the age of 10, the subconscious is done, and it's all from there on. It's like, no, like you can still have major things that happen where you experience that intense emotion that leaves some kind of imprint within the subconscious. The really cool thing is, though, this isn't just speaking of negative emotions or negative experiences. This can totally be positive, which is what we use so much in the power of hypnosis, is reprogramming the subconscious mind with the positive things through a lot of strong emotion and buy-in on the positive side. It's really, really super cool. So we talked about this a little bit. The subconscious mind storing information 24/7, no matter what state of consciousness that you're in. Now, I have a cool story for this, which I'm still trying to decide exactly how it all worked out, but I think this is a good example of how the subconscious mind really works. So back in the day when I was still online, we had ran the classic middle of the night cardiac arrest call. Actually, no, timeout, sorry. It wasn't cardiac arrest yet. It was, I can't remember if it was palpitations or digestional discomfort, something like that. GI, something. I don't remember. But anyways, we get to the call. We're starting and doing our assessment, talking to this guy. Just seems kind of like a out of the blue start of symptoms, like really kind of strange, nothing straightforward. Until we get him on the monitor and his EKG was totally bananas. And at that point, it's like, holy cow, we didn't have much time until the series of events that happened next, which included him going into cardiac arrest there with us while we're there. Funnily enough, I was working with one of our awesome firefighters, and who's about like 10 times bigger than most normal human beings, but an amazing individual. And I'll never forget, because he looked at me and he said, "Oh, I think you killed him." I was like, "I didn't kill him. Like, I didn't do anything. We didn't do literally anything. He cored out in front of us." So anyways, we get into the ground. We start doing our thing, CPR and everything. And we needed to defibrillate this guy. So we did, charged it up, shocked him. He came in and out of like full consciousness in between shocks. We did several different series of shocks. And was like telling us how uncomfortable it was to be defibrillated and how that didn't feel great. And like, yeah, I don't feel great right now, like watching you go back and forth like this. But in between shocks, no kidding, we were talking about giving amiodarone, a drug that we would use in this algorithm for cardiac arrest. And we're talking about this, and I'm telling one of the EMTs to draw it up. And we had shocked him, and literally, no joke, as soon as the shock was over, he woke up, he told us, "I'm allergic to amiodarone," and then went back into cardiac arrest again. And I was like, no kidding. How this is freaking crazy. And so this just shows, even though like he wasn't conscious by definition terms, his subconscious mind was definitely still taking in and processing information. So hopefully you enjoyed that story. It was a really cool moment where you've almost seen it work out like it does on the TV show, which was kind of fun. So anyways, the mind never sleeps. The subconscious mind never sleeps. Even under drug anesthesia, a person can subconsciously be aware of the conversations. So maybe be a little bit more aware of the conversations you're having when you're working with people who are unconscious. So just to throw that out there. But anyways, subconscious mind, always taking in information. The subconscious mind communicates very heavily through symbolic language. So this means like images, music, metaphors, all of that really makes sense and processes well through the subconscious mind. That's why when we're doing work with the subconscious, we want to find another way to see things. There's always another way to see things. The subconscious mind, again, the metaphor thing grabs on very easily in the terms of the subconscious because it's bypassing the conscious mind and speaking directly to the subconscious, which I don't know why all the science of it works, but it does work. It responds well to rhythm, so that's why a lot of people use or have heard of binaural beats, different like hertz rhythms, that kind of stuff, because the subconscious mind, that's where it does the work for that. So it is a proven way to alter brainwave states, thus kind of getting into that cool trance where you can do that kind of work within the subconscious. Now, the subconscious mind is only concerned with the right here and right now. It's concerned with the feeling good, essentially, moving away from pain to pleasure. It's not going to move you toward pain. Like, it just doesn't. That's not how it works. So it's always going to move you away from pain as that deep embedded survival mechanism, and it wants to be right all of the time. And it's going to want to 100% be safe and feel good all of the time. That's where we see so many maladaptive behaviors as that movement away from pain. And this is a really cool opportunity to maybe extend yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of compassion in terms of some of these things that have been these ineffective coping strategies or behaviors, is understanding the why behind it. It's the subconscious trying to do the best that it can for you and moving away from pain and towards pleasure, even if it's things that are not helping you out in the long run. So grace and compassion can get you a long ways as you start to do a lot of this work. Now, we already talked about, it always wants to be right. That's just exactly how it goes. So, yeah, that kind of wraps it up on the subconscious side of it. Now, I want to talk about the critical factor. Now, when we think about, I like to you're not going to be able to see my hand, so just go there with me. But you have one part of your brain that is your mind, essentially, the subconscious mind. And another part of the mind, the conscious mind, which we'll talk more about in just a second. Within the middle is what we call the critical factor. Now, the critical factor is what I like to call the fact-checking gatekeeper. This is the place where it is going to examine, interpret, and filter any incoming ideas that are coming in through the conscious mind. So, if someone comes into my office and they have this underlying belief that, we'll just stick with the theme since we've stuck with it all day. I'm not good enough. Let's say that's the theme. We finally got to the core of the actual belief, but the belief is, I'm not good enough. If I sit on the other side of the room and I tell them, you are good enough, you have plenty of examples that show you that you are good enough, like these expectations that you're setting on yourself, they're ridiculous, or that you are already complete or whole or perfect, or you don't have to keep doing for people to accept you or like you, or you're more than enough as you are. All of those good things, I can sit across the room and tell this to this other person. And it can come in through their conscious mind. Their conscious mind is like, yeah, I like that. As soon as it hits the critical factor, the critical factor is going to say, yeah, a nice try. We don't believe you. Because it's going to check all of that information with the subconscious mind. And when those ideas are already held there, this idea that I'm not good enough is in the subconscious mind, it is going to 100% reject all of those things. Because it says, yeah, we don't believe that. Or yeah, 10-year-old Joe doesn't believe that. Or 8-year-old Sally doesn't believe that. We don't believe that as true. This is why I found, which is a very interesting, and I didn't understand this until actually having gone through this at a much deeper level, because I am very much an advocate of affirmations and that kind of work. I do think it's very important, but if you can say 10,000 positive affirmations to yourself throughout the day, but if you don't actually believe it, like believing it deep down in your core, in your subconscious, you don't believe it, it's going to do nothing for you. You may get a little bit based on just repetition if you were really consistent about doing it all of the time. You might get a little bit of change through that. But for the most part, like, you're not going to be able to accept those suggestions. And actually, like, that critical factor, it develops around the age of 7 years old, and it finishes maybe around the age of 15. So you have this window of time when it's developing and receiving information. So we talked about how crucial the time frame is up to 8 to 10 years old, right? And now we have a few more years in between that where the critical factor is finished developing. It is going to base all of that gatekeeping off of those beliefs that have already been put into play. Now, this is where, of course, hypnosis can bypass the critical factor because we're just kind of confusing the heck out of it, which is really cool and powerful to be able to do. But the critical factor in itself is that part of the conscious mind, but also like on the back end, a little bit of the separate part. But it's always going to be analyzing, always checking, always reconciling between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Always accepting or rejecting suggestions that come into the subconscious mind. once information is put into the subconscious mind, it's interpreted with the awareness of a 7-year-old. That's just fact of how it goes. The critical factor, it isn't there in young children. It doesn't have the power to be able to decipher, do I believe this? Do I not believe this? The door is totally wide open. So if you're a parent out there and listening, I'm not trying to scare you or anything. I'm trying to make you aware of how important that this is and what you're verbally and non-verbally telling your kids that they are, or imprinting those beliefs into their subconscious mind. It's really, really important to pay attention to. So, it doesn't mean that if you've gotten some kind of programming that isn't working for you anymore, whether what we've talked about it before, unlovable, not good enough, a screw up, never gonna measure up, not worthy, dirty, disgusting, bad, wrong, there's something wrong with you, any of that kind of stuff, it can always be worked with. There's never an ending point to where to say, like, I'm sorry, you've reached the age of 45, and now we can no longer work with your subconscious. That's a bunch of bull. Like, that doesn't exist. That's not a real thing. It can be worked with. All you need to have is a willingness. All you have to do is walk through the door. Super easy. It can be done. Now, we talked a little bit about how to bypass the critical factor. And I can't emphasize it enough, really, of like, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it, to actually really work into those beliefs. And I do think that there's like a lot of power in the awareness of getting to what the actual belief is. So outside of the emotions and really into the beliefs. So if you're dealing with some struggle within your life, and let's say like you're dealing with headaches. So you're dealing with a lot of headaches, and when I ask you, when you think about your headaches and what they do for you, how do you feel? And you say, well, they make me feel like irritated and frustrated and annoyed. Great. So when you think about your headaches and you feel so irritated and frustrated and annoyed, what does that make you believe? What does that make you believe about yourself? Oh, I'm broken. I'm wrong. There's something wrong with me. I'm stuck. Whatever it is. We'll find out what it is, I promise. That's one of the best things to be able to do. But once your eyes are open as to what you actually believe about yourself, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, once you say these things out loud, or someone says them back to you, that I'm unlovable, I'm not going to be good enough, I'm not worthy of this, whatever it is for you, it's really powerful. It hits very heavy. It's real. It's really real when you hear that. Man, there's a lot of emotion that shows up behind that. And we love that, right? Because when there's emotion, the subconscious mind is open. So we're here for it all day. Now, let's move forward and talk about the conscious mind. Now, the conscious mind is pretty fascinating in itself as well. It's definitely our reasoning, analytical, logical mind. It takes into consideration choice of action. So the conscious mind is only really able to take in about 5 to 7 pieces of information at a time. It has a very, like we talked about at the beginning, has a very small capacity to handle and process information. But it is definitely, it's only really on board when you're conscious, obviously, but it's conceptual, it's calculating, and it's interpreting all the time. Sometimes we think of it as the inductive, deductive type reasoning mind. It is also going to look, listen, and learn, and then try to feed that information to the subconscious mind to say, what do we do with this? Is this situation anything like we've experienced before? Is this something that we can be okay with? Or is this something we need to be worried about and handle in a different way? It, of course, is going to reason and judge, analyze, critique, and also does some of the accepting and rejecting as well. The conscious mind can be incredibly neurotic and chaotic. I heard a really interesting statistic the other day, and I don't know how they ended up studying this, but it's really cool that they did. But they said that on average, a person will have 50,000 thoughts a day. 50,000 thoughts. And of which they said maybe less than 10,000 of them are actually conscious, like energy given to thought through thoughts. So many of the thoughts that we have don't even come from our own conscious mind. It's a ton of information coming in at one time. I mean, 50,000 thoughts it's a lot of thoughts. So, something to keep in mind with that, right? With the conscious mind. So, what I like to make sure that you kind of understand and to make it make a little bit more sense here is I want you to picture a computer setup. And if we have our hard drive, the hard drive is going to be our subconscious mind. That's where all of the data, all the information, all the programming is held. The monitor is going to be our conscious mind. So that's the lens that we're going to see and experience everything through is through the conscious mind, backed with the data from the hard drive, from the subconscious mind. Connecting to the monitor, right, or however you want to visualize it, the keyboard, is our life events. So that's the data, the information coming in to the monitor, and that is going into the hard drive. Don't get too hard on me on the details of this, analogy, but just go with me. So as the information comes in, it's going to get fact-checked by the critical factor, and then it's going to see whether or not we believe this as to really be true or not. Or how do we need to take in this information and produce an outcome from it. Now, as we put a nice bow on this entire conversation, what I really, really, really want you to walk away with knowing is that the subconscious mind, we cannot underestimate the power of it. We cannot just assume that you can do only positive affirmations and tell yourself these things or read a self-help book after self-help book and expect there to be lasting changes or transformation. It is not going to be how this works for you. You're going to end up finding yourself in the same patterns that are frustrating you right now. You're going to find situations that are going to keep repeating themselves over and over because you're still holding on to these beliefs. If we think about, we talked a little bit about this before, but thinking about how powerful the programming is. So if you have this programming that you're holding on to, that you're worthless or useless or unlovable or weak or incapable or not good enough, or you're hurt, sad, afraid, angry, guiltful, shameful. If you find comfort through codependent relationships, alcohol, drugs, if you feel safer keeping on extra body weight, if you feel like keeping your heart closed and not feeling any emotions keeps you safe or from feeling anything that does feel negative, that is going to impact what your life looks like. And if you're trying to be productive, successful, live an abundant life, but all of that programming is existing within you under the surface, I'm sorry but not sorry to tell you, is that it's not going to work for you. If you believe these things, if you're operating out of this lens of these beliefs, it is going to be nearly impossible for you to experience success, to experience abundance. That critical factor is going to instantly reject any of the good stuff coming in if it doesn't match what it already believes. If it believes any of those things. If you want to really truly experience change and transformation, is you have to rework, reprogram, reframe those subconscious beliefs, those outdated beliefs that you're holding within yourself. And I really, really encourage you, as your call to action here, is to find a way to be able to do that. Whether it's through focus therapy that does actually focus on it, because not all therapy does. Some therapy will just be symptom management and mitigation, which again is not going to get you anywhere in the long run. But either through hypnosis or some other version of deep invested therapy is to start looking at what are these beliefs that I actually hold about myself, and how am I seeing this impact my life? What is the cost of me holding on to this belief and using this as a framework of how I move through life, how I make decisions, how I have relationships, how I spend money, how do I take care of myself, all of those things, because that is going to be the truth about what you actually believe. And if that's what you believe, that's not actually the truth, but that's the reality of what you're believing. And that needs to be corrected. And so until you go out and you do that, I don't want you to be frustrated. I don't want you to give up on therapy or give up on yourself thinking it's not working. I'm still experiencing anxiety, like I'm still having these symptoms show up, whatever that looks like. It's because you just haven't cleaned house. You haven't figured out what the root is of stuff that's actually going on under the surface. And I really, 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 really highly encourage you to do that. I promise you, it will change your entire life. I am so happy to have that conversation with you if that's something that you're interested in, or very much help direct you in a way to be able to do that. It has been so impactful for me in my life. I cannot really overexpress it or talk about it enough. And pretty soon I'll share kind of a little bit more about my journey and my story. But I'm telling you, it's changed everything for me. It's the real deal when it comes to doing this kind of work that is so freeing and liberating and allows you to experience and live life in such a different way. So I really encourage you to do that. I am so glad that you joined in the conversation with me today and took the time to sit down. I hope that you enjoyed our discussion on the subconscious, the conscious mind, and the critical factor, and I hope it piqued your interest and got you excited to learn about a lot more. Have a beautiful day wherever you are, and I look forward to sitting down with you again very soon.